We are live.
We are live.
Well, that was the wrong one.
It's all right.
Steve ABQ, Nate Skates, what's up? What's up, everybody? Just gonna play this little thing here and let people join the chat while we're getting everything finished up here. And let's see if this one works. Not showing you. It's not showing that you're live. Look at the upper right-hand corner.
Who, me?
Yeah. Does it say go live?
On what?
It says Pink says you're not live.
You are live, it says. You got to refresh your screen, Pink. I'm live. I'm watching it on mine. Yeah, we're live. We are alive, I promise. Like real. We're real.
Well, back to... All right. Well, Nate Skates, what's
Welcome
up,
in,
brother?
everybody.
Howard Guy, Pink Taco, Dangerous Liberty, David Weiss, seeing us both live. Hey, I appreciate you. John Denicola, Brandon Mitchell, Leo Watcher, Chuck Bronson, what's up? Appreciate you all coming in. You want to give some shout outs to people in your chat?
Yeah, I got, Chuck Bronson, Howard County Observer, Leo Watcher, John Denicola, Homegrown, Brandon Mitchell, David Weiss, and Pink Taco. And of course, Nightbot, ! Commands. There you go. It may pull up some words I don't know that we're talking about.
Had two set up to be live? I did,
I don't know.
Pink?
No, it was set to be live at a certain time, and then it you have to go in and.
Well, we're it's a new feature, and we're both new to it, so.
Gotta be smarter than you two.
Apologize for that, y'all. We're trying to figure it out here, but
this
is going to be probably going to be a fairly long panel here, guys. We're going to start out with a video here, one that famously dropped earlier. You want to kind of give a little intro on it?
It's about a wrongful conviction, one of many in Elkhart County, Indiana. It's a Dwayne Dunn case. You don't hear a lot about these cases on the news, as you guys know. Hell, we were at the bar the other night filming in South Bend, Indiana, and the news people were asking us, "What do we do? Well, the same question applies. What do you do? This is what we do. We reveal corruption as it should be. The Dwayne Dunn case, he was convicted of a murder, did like 12 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections prison. The Notre Dame Exoneration Justice Committee, they got a hold of the case. The attorneys out of Lovie and Lovie in Chicago, one of which is Elliot Slozar, who was at one time gag ordered by a judge that was dismissed from these cases. And it's just something that we're going to go over. We're going to go over the whole lawsuit coming from that wrongful conviction. Some of the names are going to come out in there as they have before. And this is the PDF files of those cases. And that way everybody can see for themselves. It's not just, blowing through a microphone on a camera and, giving police guff. There's systemic corruption in Elkhart, Indiana, and it still continues to this day. And you're about ready to find out about that when we go through some videos. So, I mean, if you want to play the video, it'll explain a little bit more.
Yeah, that PDF that we're going to go through, it's 26 pages, guys. We'll skip over some parts. That's not really
It's going to read it for you.
Yeah, I got a PDF reader that we're gonna use, so we don't.
I got the 26 pages here. I mean, if you want me to read it to you, I'm sure you don't want to listen to Kermit the Frog reading you a whole 26-page lawsuit. So we're a little bit more professional.
Yeah. All right, let's watch Famousy's video from earlier today, and then we'll go to a news article about a soon-to-be famous judge in the area.
She's already famous.
Elkhart, Indiana, a city with a heartland soul, but a shadow hangs over Elkhart, a history of injustice, a pattern of betrayal. This is the story of that shadow, and the brave souls fighting back. This is about the fight for truth, the pursuit of accountability. It's about the resilience of the human spirit and the long, arduous journey toward justice. September 3rd, 2008, a fateful night. Angel Torres falls from a balcony. Tragedy strikes. 2 days later, Torres succumbs to his injuries. An accident? The Elkhart Police Department sees something more. They see murder. Their target, Dwayne Dunn, a man now caught in a nightmare, a web of deceit spun by those sworn to protect, his life about to change forever. The Wolverines, a name whispered in fear, a rogue unit within the Elkhart Police Department, their tactics, aggressive, unlawful, their loyalty to their badge. Not to the truth, they bend the law, they break the rules, their goal, convictions at any cost. Dwayne Dunn is about to become another statistic. Detective Michael Sigsby, the lead investigator, driven by ambition, blinded by prejudice. He sets his sights on Dunn. Evidence is manipulated. Witnesses are coerced. Letha Sims, Dunn's partner, becomes a pawn. Forced to lie, her words twisted. A false narrative takes shape. The trap is set. A glimmer of hope. Years pass. Dunn maintains his innocence. Hope flickers. Then a breakthrough. The University of Notre Dame Law School, a beacon of light in the darkness. The Exoneration Justice Clinic takes on Dunn's case. Lawyers and students dedicated to justice. They see the flaws, the inconsistencies, the lies. Echoes of injustice. Dunn's story is not unique in Elkhart. Christopher Parrish, Andy Royer, more victims, falsely accused, wrongfully convicted, their lives shattered. Their stories echo Dunn's, a pattern of abuse, a system rigged. The Wolverines leave a trail of devastation, but amidst the ruins, hope persists. Unmasking the system, the Elkhart Police Department, rotten to its core, a breeding ground for corruption. The Wolverines, a symptom of a deeper disease, a culture of silence. Accountability is elusive. The powerful protect their own, but the truth has a way of surfacing. The fight for justice continues. The Notre Dame Exoneration Justice Clinic presses forward. Evidence is re-examined, witnesses recant, the lies unravel, the truth emerges. Finally, after 12 long years, Dwayne Dunn is exonerated. He walks free, but the scars remain. The fight is not over. A new dawn. Dunn's case is a victory, but it is just the beginning. The fight for justice continues. For every Dwayne Dunn, how many more suffer in silence? The wrongfully convicted deserve more than freedom. They deserve justice. They deserve accountability, and they deserve a system that upholds the truth.
Hey, Rocky, do you support the First Amendment?
Love that horse. So this is a story on Yahoo News talking about Judge Teresa Cataldo. Want me to read this to you guys, or?
I can narrate a little bit of it if you want me to.
Can?
What had happened was this judge, Teresa Cataldo, tried to issue a gag order on one of the exoneration attorneys. After trying to file numerous post-conviction reliefs, motions in the court, the prosecutor actually filed a motion for a gag order on the lawyer, Elliot Slovzar, and the judge granted that gag order for the prosecution. So again, what was the prosecution wanting to hide and didn't want out there? Well, you're about ready to find out. They went to the Supreme Court of Indiana. They ruled that they asked, for the judge to be removed. So the attorneys did, and the judge was removed from those cases because she has a conflict of interest because she was married to a former police officer, Stephen Capoletti, who was removed from his job for, egregious acts and was rumored to be a member of the Wolverines. She had testified to the Supreme Court that she hadn't had contact with this person since 2003. We found paperwork in 2008 where her family member owned a pizza business in Florida with this ex-husband, a family member that's so close that there's no possible way some kind of contact wasn't, it's just unbelievable. The judge is removed. They're getting a new judge and a special judge, and now there's lawsuits pending. There's 3 lawsuits, civil rights lawsuits pending, more exonerations. You've got the Iris Seibold, you've got the Leon Tyson, the Pink Robinson, the Dwayne Dunn, numerous wrongful convictions and exoneration lawsuits coming up. And mind you, Elkhart's already paid $26.6 million out for their egregious acts. It just keeps going and going and going. Andy Royer just got 11.6 or $12 million. This is a lot of money being paid out for wrongful convictions, and it's snowballing out of control. That's why this prosecutor who's being sued in all these cases, Vicky Becker, wanted the gag order on the judge or on the attorney through the judge that worked in the prosecutor's office before. We're going to watch all this. Let Midwest play that video, and it'll explain more.
All right. So you don't want to go through this article? You pretty much just summarize
pretty much
it.
What you're going to hear is basically in the video.
Here, what I'll do is I'll post this link in the chat for anybody that may want to go back and read it themselves.
There you go. And then I'll get it and put it in the chat as well. Easy. Yeah.
I think if I post it in the chat, it goes in both.
Does it?
I think so.
All right.
Not 100% sure on that, but then we'll share this one.
It's in the link of the video. It's in the description and all that, or in the comments.
All right, here's the video, guys.
Famously, with a camera in his hand, citizen journalist exposing what's been banned. YouTube this platform, speaking up for all, calling out corruption, standing proud and tall. Push the Midland warrior, shining the light, accountability and civil rights.
We probably could have started it a little bit more, but thanks for
Rocky,
coming in, you guys.
Do you support the First Amendment?
Elkhart County, Indiana, a place where the scales of justice seem perpetually tipped. At the heart of this unsettling narrative stands Judge Teresa Cataldo, a figure intertwined with a troubling history of alleged police misconduct and wrongful convictions. Cataldo's time on the bench has been marred by accusations of bias, her past casting a long shadow over her ability to dispense justice impartially. Her previous marriage to a police officer, now dismissed from the force, raises red flags about potential conflicts of interest. Even more disturbing are whispers about her connections to a notorious group known as the Wolverines, accused of running roughshod over citizens' rights for decades.
Targets of a rogue group of cops inside the Elkhart Police Department, dating back more than 30 years, known as the Wolverines. And Cooper's attorneys believe the actions of the Wolverines may soon make Elkhart per capita the exoneration capital of the U.S.
Adding to the controversy, evidence has surfaced that Teresa Cataldo's ex-husband co-owns a business in Florida with her family member, Bruno Cataldo, contradicting her statements to the Indiana Supreme Court. A judge's troubling ties. The Wolverines. The very name evokes images of aggression, of a pack mentality operating outside the bounds of law. In Elkhart County, the Wolverines are more than just a name. They are a chilling reminder of the potential for unchecked power to corrupt. This rogue group of police officers has been accused of a litany of abuses, planting evidence, coercing confessions, and using excessive force with impunity. Judge Cataldo's alleged ties to the Wolverines strike at the very heart of her impartiality. Her former husband's dismissal from the force, though shrouded in secrecy, only adds fuel to the fire. The whispers about Cataldo and the Wolverines must be investigated thoroughly and transparently. Iris Seabolt, a canary in the coal mine of corruption. Iris Seabolt. Wrongfully convicted of murder in 2004, Seabolt spent years behind bars, a victim of a system more concerned with securing convictions than pursuing justice. Seabolt's case is a chilling example of the tactics allegedly employed by the Wolverines: fabricated witness statements, coerced testimony, and a blatant disregard for the truth. Her eventual exoneration exposed the dark underbelly of Elkhart County's justice system. Tragically, Iris Seabolt's story is not an isolated incident in Elkhart County. Her case is but one thread in a tapestry woven with the suffering of countless others ensnared in the same web of deceit and misconduct. The names of these victims echo through the halls of the Elkhart County Courthouse: Reginald Dillard, Leon Tyson, Pink Robinson. Each name represents a life damaged by a system seemingly rigged against the innocent. The sheer number of wrongful convictions in Elkhart County is staggering, a damning indictment of a system that seems to have lost its moral compass. The stench of corruption in Elkhart County extends far beyond the rogue actions of a single group of police officers. Prosecutors tasked with upholding justice have been accused of withholding exculpatory evidence, manipulating witnesses, and turning a blind eye to police brutality. Recently, Judge Teresa Cataldo was removed from a post-conviction case due to conflicts of interest, further highlighting the judiciary's complicity in this culture of corruption. Elkhart County stands at a crossroads. The weight of its past sins, the wrongful convictions, the allegations of police brutality, the pervasive sense that justice is for sale, threatens to crush the very soul of the community. The time for denial is over. The time for accountability is now. A thorough and independent investigation into the actions of the Wolverines, as well as the conduct of prosecutors and judges, is essential. Only through a commitment to transparency, accountability, and a fundamental re-evaluation of its priorities can Elkhart County hope to shed its reputation as a place where justice is but a cruel illusion.
Very good, very good, very good.
I get this right one day. All right, and then
Yes.
well, I guess we can go ahead and do this one real quick. Might as well.
Okay.
Now give me time to run upstairs real quick.
All right, that's fine.
Gotta get out of mom's
right.
basement real quick.
Yes, sir.
Elkhart, Indiana, a city of modest size, harbors a dark secret. It has become a breeding ground for wrongful convictions. The number of exonerations, particularly among people of color, is staggering. This alarming trend has earned Elkhart the grim title of wrongful conviction capital of America. Is this simply a string of unfortunate coincidences? Or does it point to a systemic issue within the Elkhart Police Department and the Elkhart County Prosecutor's Office? The evidence suggests a deeply troubling pattern of misconduct. Fabricated evidence, coerced confessions, and blatant disregard for constitutional rights are recurring themes. These actions have shattered the lives of countless innocent individuals and eroded public trust in the justice system. The scars of these injustices run deep, leaving the community traumatized and crying out for change. The human cost of these wrongful convictions is immeasurable. Years lost in prison, families torn apart, and reputations destroyed. The trauma inflicted on these individuals is compounded by the indifference and hostility they often face upon release. How can they rebuild their lives when the system that wrongfully imprisoned them offers little support or accountability? The city of Elkhart can no longer afford to ignore this stain on its conscience. The time for empty promises and superficial reforms is over. The citizens of Elkhart deserve a justice system that is fair, impartial, and accountable. Dwayne Dunn spent 12 agonizing years behind bars for a murder he did not commit. His conviction was based on flimsy evidence and the dubious testimony of a jailhouse informant. The prosecution, blinded by their zeal to secure a conviction, ignored crucial evidence that pointed to Dunn's innocence. It was only through the tireless efforts of dedicated attorneys and the Innocence Project that Dunn was finally exonerated and released.
Hakeem Lehman's story is equally tragic. He was arrested during a routine traffic stop. The officer, seemingly motivated by racial bias, fabricated charges of resisting arrest. Lehman, a hard-working father struggling to support his family, lost his job and his reputation. The charges against him were eventually dropped, but the damage was already done.
These cases are not isolated incidents. They are emblematic of a deeply flawed system that disproportionately targets and punishes marginalized communities. The use of fabricated evidence, racial profiling, and excessive force has created a climate of fear and mistrust between law enforcement and the communities they're sworn to protect. The emotional and psychological toll on the victims of these injustices is immense. They live with the constant fear of being falsely accused, harassed, or even killed by the very people who should be protecting them. This fear is not unfounded. It is a direct result of the culture of impunity that pervades the Elkhart Police Department. Joy Phillips, a former Elkhart police officer, dared to challenge the department's corrupt culture from within. When ordered to write a search warrant that she believed to be illegal, she refused. Her act of conscience, her commitment to upholding the law, was met with swift and brutal retaliation. She was ostracized by her colleagues, subjected to relentless harassment, and ultimately forced out of the department.
Phillips's story is a testament to the code of silence that protects bad actors within the Elkhart Police Department. Officers who report misconduct are often targeted, their careers destroyed, their reputations tarnished. This culture of fear and intimidation prevents other officers from coming forward, allowing the cycle of abuse to continue unchecked.
Phillips's courage in speaking out should be applauded, not punished. She represents the best of law enforcement, the commitment to justice and integrity that should be the hallmark of every officer. Her treatment at the hands of her own department is a disgrace and a betrayal of the public trust. The retaliation against Phillips sends a chilling message to other officers. Stay silent or face the consequences. This culture of fear and intimidation must end. The Elkhart Police Department needs leaders who value integrity over blind loyalty, who encourage transparency, and who hold officers accountable for their actions. The city of Elkhart has responded to the growing outcry over police misconduct with a series of vague promises and superficial reforms.
They have pledged to increase training, improve community relations, and enhance oversight. However, these promises ring hollow in the face of continued inaction and a lack of concrete measures.
The city's response has been characterized by a persistent refusal to acknowledge the systemic nature of the problem. They have dismissed the cases of wrongful convictions as isolated incidents, the work of a few bad apples. This denial prevents any meaningful change and perpetuates the cycle of abuse.
The city's reluctance to address the root causes of police misconduct is deeply troubling. They have shown little willingness to engage in honest dialogue with the community, to listen to the voices of those most affected by police brutality and systemic racism.
This lack of transparency and accountability only deepens the divide between law enforcement and the people they are sworn to serve. The citizens of Elkhart deserve more than empty promises and half-hearted measures.
They deserve a comprehensive plan of action that addresses the systemic issues plaguing the police department. This plan must include independent oversight, robust accountability mechanisms, and a genuine commitment to rebuilding trust with the community.
The fight for justice in Elkhart is far from over. The city faces a long and arduous road to restoring public trust in its justice system.
The first step on this path is accountability. Those responsible for perpetrating these injustices must be held to account. This accountability must extend beyond individual officers. It must encompass the prosecutors, judges, and city officials who enabled and perpetuated this culture of impunity.
A thorough and impartial investigation into the practices of the Elkhart Police Department and the Elkhart County Prosecutor's Office is long overdue. The victims of these injustices deserve more than just an apology.
They deserve restitution for the years stolen, the opportunities lost, and the trauma endured. The city must provide comprehensive support services, including counseling, job training, and financial assistance to help them rebuild their lives.
It is a fight for a justice system that truly lives up to its name, a system that treats all citizens with dignity, respect, and fairness, regardless of race, ethnicity, or socio-economic status. The time for change is now.
What an absolute shit show over there, huh?
Definitely full of corruption, bro. It's been like that for years, decades. Just think of all the people that are incarcerated that, you know, don't have a voice, or they took a plea bargain, or they already finished their sentence. You know, they can't do nothing about it. You know, you're locked up that long, you lose your mother, your father, kids. I mean, everything's gone. You got to write that letter, you know, that you're never coming home. You know, you make amends with yourself. You know, it's like you might be in a happy marriage or something or anything, you know, and you got to let everything go. Think about that, everything. And then when you come back out to society, you're not guaranteed to have anything. The places they send you, that if you don't have anything, like the faith mission, no one wants to go there. It's worse than being in the prison you came from. Sad
It's like
situation.
once they get their claws into you, even when you're out, they're going to keep screwing with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing the same thing that, you know, they do the same thing starting from when you're a kid. They get you into the CPS system, and they get these judges that follow you clear up until adulthood. And once you hit adulthood, they switch over into the adult courts, and they know what you've been through and what they've pinned on you and everything when you were a kid. So then they use that against you when you're an adult too. And it's just a never ending cycle of bullshit.
That's Judge Bonfiglio if you're in Elkhart. Started in 1986. He was a juvenile judge and then went over to Superior Court 6. And guess what he does now? The Family and Children Court. So if you were a child and you grew up with issues, you end up having issues as an adult with addictions or family issues, you go in his court. They send you to Child and Parent Services, which his appointed guardian is Mary Rats. It just goes on and on and on and on and on into more corruption. I mean, it doesn't stop. So he's got control of you when you were younger, when you're older, and if they want more control of you, that guess what? They rub shoulders. A lot of these people have from the same law firms over the years. A lot of them worked in the prosecutor's office together, public defender's office. It just there's the problem is there's no real attorneys in Elkhart County. Just think about this. You got a law firm from Chicago, Illinois, Loby and Loby, that happens to employ a law professor of Notre Dame, Elliot Slozar, I believe Jimmy Garul. And it takes that law firm to go through one of the biggest universities in the country to overturn the cases that were wrongfully convicted. But what is shocking is the fact that when you look up these people's LinkedIn accounts and where they went to school and who they're interconnected with, it leads right back to Notre Dame or other business influences in the area. A lot of these people graduated from Notre Dame Law School. Vicky Becker did not. So to me, it seems like Notre Dame's trying to do a good thing and clean up their own backyard. It's been, no offense, but it's been shit in an awful lot and they don't like it. Okay. The image that it portrays is not good for that law school. So guess how you fix that? You go back and make them fix it. No matter who it pisses off. And then it reveals things that you guys are getting ready to learn that you never thought was imaginable. Before we go through this PDF file, I want to point out something. I want you to remember when you were younger, all of the things that were pounded in your head through the media, local media. And when you read through this lawsuit, that you've never heard all these things on local media being revealed that we reveal. I don't know why they don't talk about them. Maybe these people
Are
are
they
their
part of the plan?
landscaper. I mean, I don't know. Well, they're definitely part of the Klan. If you remember the marches in Goshen and everything when we were younger, wondering who was behind those masks, you're getting ready to learn right here in this lawsuit. So
Well,
pay
and
attention.
sorry. Another thing we learned when we was researching to do this panel is that neighboring states have an increasing, ever-growing number of exonerations coming out. Illinois is named the top with the most exonerations in the entire nation, and Elkhart area is highest per capita. So let that sink in that
yes.
that a law firm from Chicago in a state with the most exonerations is dealing with Elkhart too. That's saying a lot. That they've got their hands full.
What's like Elliot Slozar said, Elkhart has the possibility to be, the wrongful conviction capital of the nation. If it keeps being revealed and revealed and revealed and revealed, it's going to be insane. Just think of it. Just keeps. It's like every month there's a filing. 26. Hell, more than that, 100 something pages on some of these suits. I mean, it's right there. I don't know if you can read it, but
I've got it ready to bring up.
we're ready.
Now, this might take me a little time. I won't be able to see the chat, but I got to click
They might not be able to see it, but they'll be able to hear it when it reads it to them.
I have to click on every sentence, guys, for it to read it to you. That way you don't have to hear two froggers talking to you.
Can you zoom in on that by any chance?
I don't know that I can. Let me see.
On the bottom
yes, I can.
down there somewhere. Yeah.
Is that better for you
One
guys?
more if you can. One more if you can. See how put up. Yeah, that'll clear up for him a little better. Can you guys read that a little better? Give us some thumbs
Give
up
us
or something. Let's see. It's gonna get too
one in the
easy
chat.
though, so you can follow along. And what I'll do is I'll drop the link to it in the chat for us, so everybody can go follow along. How about that? So if everybody knows how to read a PDF, there you go. You can follow along. It's in there.
All right. So again, I won't be able to see the chat because I'll be clicking on this so it can read it to you guys. So if you have any questions or need us to stop and want to discuss anything, just let us know. And
I'll go
Famous,
share
you
it
can
in
tell me.
yours too. I'll go share it over in yours.
Cool.
You gotta turn it up some.
I don't know that I can here.
Oh.
I don't know how to turn it up with the screen reader. Can you guys hear it all right or what?
No.
The tragedy of Mr. Torres' death was compounded by Mr. Dunn's wrongful.
Let me go back over here. You guys cannot hear it at all or what?
You can hear it a little bit. It needs to come up a little bit if it can. I don't know how.
I don't know either.
I'll read it either way.
Let's get a 1 in the chat if the chat can hear it. Okay. A 2 if you cannot. That way we're not.
The battle said, "Turn it up, Sweet Home Alabama." There's no volume control on there like a speaker
I didn't see anything.
in there when you turn the voice on or whatever. Weird.
Oh,
I
can you
can't
just
see
go
it.
in here?
Let me look at this thing here. Let's see. Holy, it'd have to be in the volume control of the. Can you guys hear it?
We got
Somebody put
Johnny
put
Robert.
ones.
Kilta Copwood said 2. Johnny said 1.
Top said 1. Pink Taco said 1.
So they can't hear it. All right.
All right. Well, yeah, let it rip.
We'll just we'll let it read. I'll let it read to the end of the document, and we'll pause it.
The battle said it's low, so whatever that means. The broadcast volume.
Check the volume of the YouTube.
I'll check it.
I don't think I can. I'm just going to hit.
USDC /ND case 3:24CV0060. Document filed July 25th, 24, page 1 of 26. In the United States District Court, District CV0060. Filed July 25th, 24, page 1 of 26. B. City of Elkhart, Michael Sigsby, Dean Marks, Scott Wagner, Vicky Becker, in their individual capacities. Introduction. 1 September 2003, Angel Torres tragically died after falling from the second floor. The Park of Alabama. The tragedy of Mr. Torres' death was compounded by Mr. Dunn's wrongful conviction for Torres' accidental death. Mr. Dunn did not cause Mr. Torres' death. More than 19 months later, Mr. Dunn found himself charged with Mr. Torres. 5 after the jury trial, Mr. Dunn was convicted of murder.
Stop it for a minute, Bob.
The only evidence supporting charges against Mr. Dunn was fabricated expert. 78 years old.
I don't.
All right. Now, if you go to open the edit menu, edit, and then you go to preferences.
Go to what?
Preferences. within the read aloud options, preferences, more, hit more. Sound. No?
You don't have a paid version.
Oh. So it's low. You ain't gonna be able to use it. I'll read it. It's very low. There's no way. I tried to hear it too, and you can't hear it. You know what I mean?
All right, guys. Well, we'll just do it this way, and
well, hold on here. I might be. I can probably fix this problem in just a second. I won't be able to chat, but maybe I can do something here real quick. Sorry, y'all. Bear with us.
hey,
I'll.
we're a bunch of newbies.
Yep, noobs. Yep. All the kids on Roblox are making fun of us right now. You guys, I'm gonna try to play this. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but I'm gonna read this to you guys. Actually, I'm not even gonna play it. I'm gonna read it. So all I can say is just bear with me. If I'm going too fast for you, maybe just put it in the chat that slow down, speak up. I'll try to speak up. I don't really have a carrying voice. Although sometimes it does carry so much that they come over intercoms on these cars with red and blue lights on them, look like clown cars. They got a speaker in there where they say, lower your voice. So
you're creating a disturbance.
yeah, let's.
What's the decibel?
What's the decibel level of the? What is the decibel level of freedom of speech in the town square? Yeah, that one.
Yeah, we're gonna read it. Dangerous.
Yep, we're getting ready to read it. We're starting over.
If you guys, okay, hold on. Can you guys can read the screen, right?
Well, yeah.
If you guys can read, are you going to read it from the screen or from the paper?
I'm going to read it from my paper.
Okay, I just want to make sure that they can read it so they can follow along, and I'll scroll along
paper,
as they read it.
You're zoomed in to the level of what my paper is when I'm turning the page about.
Gotcha.
Your zoom lever, your zoom level is right on with my paper if you just follow along. Okay.
Yep, I got you.
All right. Thank you guys for coming in. Here we go. In the case in the United States District Court for the Northern District of Indiana, South Bend Division, Dwayne Dunn, plaintiff, versus the City of Elkhart, Michael Sigsby.
South Bend Division.
Well, you got to stop that lady.
/ND case 3:20.
Hold on. Why is it doing that?
601 document 1 file July 25th.
I don't know. Mute it.
I'm trying to deactivate it. Oh, stupid shit.
All right. Rewind it, you guys. I'll read it again.
Sorry about that.
I'm going to read it to you. All right. Everybody get their pencil out of the tape. In the United States District Court for the Northern District of Indiana, South Bend Division, Dwayne Dunn, plaintiff, versus the City of Elkhart, Michael Sigsby, Dean Marks, Scott Wagner, Vicky E. Becker, in their individual capacities as defendants. Jury trial is demanded. Now the introduction is, number one, I will not read ones, twos, threes. I'm just going to read it. In September 2008, Angel Torres tragically died after falling from a second-floor apartment balcony. The tragedy of Mr. Torres's death was compounded by Mr. Dunn's wrongful conviction for Torres's accidental death. Mr. Dunn did not cause Mr. Torres's death, but more than 19 months later, Mr. Dunn found himself charged with Mr. Torres's murder. After a 3-day jury trial, Mr. Dunn was convicted of murder in February of 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. 2011. The only evidence supporting charges against Mr. Dunn was fabricated expert opinions. At 48 years old, Mr. Dunn was sentenced to 58 years imprisonment. Mr. Dunn spent more than 12 years incarcerated before he was exonerated in 2022. This action is brought pursuant to 42 U.S.C. 1983 to redress the deprivation under color of law of plaintiffs' rights as secured by the United States Constitution and Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. The court has jurisdiction of plaintiffs' federal claims pursuant to 28 U.S.C. 1331 and 1343. Venue is proper under 28 U.S.C. 1391b. The majority of defendants reside in the district, and the events and omissions giving rise to plaintiff's claims occurred in this district. Parties. Dwayne Dunn is a 62-year-old resident of South Bend, Indiana. Vicki Becker served as a deputy prosecutor in the Elkhart County from 1998 until 2016 when she was elected county prosecutor. She is sued in her individual capacity and acted under color of law and within the scope of her employment during the investigation at issue. At the time of her involvement, Mrs. Becker's employment falls under the purview of the state of Indiana. At all relevant times, defendant Michael Sigsby was a police officer in the Elkhart Police Department. He is sued in his individual capacity and acted under color law and within the scope of his employment during the investigation at issue. At all relevant times, defendant Dr. Scott Wagner worked as a forensic pathologist in Fort Wayne, Indiana. He is sued in his individual capacity and acted under color of law and within the scope of his employment during the investigation at issue. At all relevant times, defendant Dean Marks worked in the crime scene division of the Indiana State Police. He is sued in his individual capacity and acted under color of law and within the scope of his employment during the investigation at issue. At all times relevant to this action, each of the named individual defendants acted individually and or collectively under the color of the laws, regulations, and customs of the state of Indiana. Each defendant's actions constituted state action as defined under federal law. Angel Torres's fall. Dwayne Dunn and Mr. Torres lived in an adjacent second floor apartments. Mr. Dunn lived with Lee Sims and her teenage son, Jamar Willie Sims. The two apartments shared a balcony and an exterior staircase depicted below.
And there it is right there, y'all. This is the balcony where this gentleman fell from right here.
Yep. Mr. Dunn, Mr. Torres, and Letha Sims were friends and sometimes socialized together. Late in the evening on September 3rd, 2008, Mr. Dunn and Mr. Torres had an argument. During the argument, Mr. Torres hit Mr. Dunn with a baseball bat. Willie Sims heard Mr. Dunn tell Mr. Torres to stop hitting him with the bat. Letha Sims informed EPD officers at the scene that she had heard a thud and that when she went outside, she saw Mr. Torres at the bottom of the stairs. Mr. Dunn did not push Mr. Torres down the stairs. Mr. Dunn never attacked Mr. Torres. After Mr. Torres fell, Mr. Dunn tried to assist him. Elkhart Police Department officers responded to the scene after a passerby called police. 2 days later, Mr. Torres died from his injuries. No probable cause supported charges against Mr. Dunn. Early in the investigation, law enforcement learned that toxicology testing showed Mr. Torres was heavily intoxicated when he arrived at the hospital. Mr. Torres also had health problems that made him more susceptible to injuries from the fall. The balcony and staircase were narrow and rickety. After Mr. Torres's fall, Mr. Dunn had injuries consistent with having been struck by a bat. The bat was found underneath Mr. Torres at the bottom of the stairs. Willie Sims observed Mr. Torres fall down the stairs. Neither Willie nor Letha observed Mr. Dunn strike Mr. Torres with any object. That is because Mr. Dunn never struck Mr. Torres with anything. All the evidence at the scene, Mr. Torres' injuries, Mr. Dunn's injuries from the baseball bat underneath Mr. Torres, eyewitness accounts, and the small amount of blood on Mr. Dunn was consistent with an accidental fall and Mr. Dunn trying to assist Mr. Torres afterwards. Non-defendant Elkhart officers conducted the initial investigation. In that investigation, the officers pursued leads, conducting a serious investigation into the manner of death. Based on all the evidence obtained in the initial investigation, the officers believed that Mr. Torres's death was not the result of a homicide, but instead was the product of an accidental fall by an intoxicated person. The
All right,
initial
let's pause right there
investigation.
for a minute.
All right, let me get it.
So you have these officers that aren't being sued that initially conducted this information, and based off of their investigation, they concluded that it wasn't a homicide or intentional shoving, pushing, hitting, or anything like that. Why in the hell did they go back and try to redo the narrative here? Like,
well, we're getting ready to find that out.
I know we're going to get into that, but I'm just posing that question to the chat. Like,
yeah, that's a sick.
What is the point of that?
Let's look at it this way. This prosecutor was elected. What cases do you think she ran on? What do you think she campaigned with as her record to get elected? All these wrongful convictions. So on the backs of other people, this is how sick these people are that run for office. They'll walk on your back, literally.
They're running their campaigns based off of the fucking unfortunate who either fucking perish or wrongfully charged for the deaths of people. And now this brings up a whole other situation of all these crimes, all these murders, all these everything that now they're no longer solved.
Who did it?
You've got all these crimes that nobody knows anything about, except for now we have factual information.
Yeah, why did they choose, just no offense, but the lower end people in society to snatch up off the streets and make them a suspect? And I mean, do you understand? Like, has anybody, you've been to jail or something, you can't reach out, you can't talk to your lawyer don't reach out to you. They tell you in court that that you're supposed to contact them. You can't contact them. But we can keep reading because we're only on page 4, so we're gonna have to keep reading at least a few, 5 or 6 pages.
I just wanted to throw that out there to get people thinking, that if they've gone to this length after other their brothers in blue had already found that it was an accidental. What do you think they're going to do to people that actually do things?
Well, just like hearing about, like, back in the day, them taking people to the city dump to torture them for confessions, and like, the things that go on behind the scenes that people don't really know about. Look what they did to that guy. I understand he spit on him, but they beat the living tar out of that guy in that chair, man. That was
the kind of fight you see two men that are not handcuffed in a ring, and it was several officers on one handcuffed man.
Well, yeah, you guys got to remember, these officers are trained, to give blows. That they go through training for that. There's strikes and blows that they're trained to give in order to get people to comply. So
incapacitating blows.
That's right. And we're looking at it as just, oh man, they were doing this, but you're not realizing, like, the pointed blows that they delivered to this person and what it could have caused in the end. And it's not even just that. They've had it where people been jerked out of patrol cars, beat on the side of the street. It's real. It's not just made up. Do you think they were required to start wearing chest cameras and everything else that they can say was damaged or deleted?
Yep.
I think they need cameras in. They do cameras in the courtrooms and stuff, but they need to have them. You know, every
Everywhere
politician
except
should have.
they should be in every hallway, with the
Mhm.
exception of bathrooms and cells. I think everywhere
Public,
should be covered.
public servants shouldn't be no different. It should be, efficient. Doge for you coming up. Um, you want me to keep reading?
Yeah. Or do you want me to? Don't matter.
No, I mean I'll go. I'll take off for a while. All right. The initial investigation took into account the autopsy conducted by Dr. Blair Trenka. The autopsy concluded that the manner of death was undetermined. As a result, Mr. Dunn was not charged with any crimes. Defendant Sigsbee fabricates statements from Letha Sims. Thank you, Fink Taco, for putting that link in there. Letha Sims was a witness to the events leading to Mr. Torres's death. During the initial investigation, Letha repeatedly confirmed Mr. Dunn's innocence to law enforcement. At the scene, Letha reported hearing Mr. Dunn tell Mr. Torres to stop hitting him with the bat. Letha never reported seeing Mr. Dunn attack Mr. Torres. That is because Mr. Dunn never attacked Mr. Torres. By 2009, defendant Sigsbee was desperate to close the investigation and frame Mr. Dunn for a crime he did not commit. To do so, defendant Sigsbee sought out Letha Sims. In March 2009, defendant Sigsbee fed Letha false information, coerced her into repeating it. Defendant Sigsbee pressured Letha into repeating that Letha had seen Mr. Dunn kick Angel Torres. Defendant Sigsbee manufactured this false statement and coerced Letha into repeating it, knowing that it was false. At the time of the fabrication, defendant Sigsbee had reviewed the investigative file, was aware of what Letha had truthfully informed law enforcement before. During the coercive questioning that led to the fabricated statement, Letha repeatedly informed defendant Sigsbee that she did not see what he was falsely telling her to repeat. Letha told defendant Sigsbee that she had observed Mr. Dunn trying to assist Mr. Torres after his fall. Despite Letha's repeated assertions that she did not see what defendant Sigsbee was falsely telling her to state, defendant Sigsbee plowed forward with his fabrication. Defendant Sigsbee knew that the statement he fabricated for Letha was false, but fabricated the statement so that defendants could prosecute Mr. Dunn for murder. Now, do you hear that? It's coercion. They are they're working together. Defendant Becker, Vicky Becker, the Elkhart County prosecutor elected, is defendant Becker, conspires to fabricate expert opinions. Defendant Becker conspired with defendants to fabricate false expert opinions. Defendant Becker did so in an investigative capacity prior to the manufactured probable cause existed to charge Mr. Dunn with a crime. Tipping the scales of justice. At the time of their conspiracy to frame plaintiff, defendants Sigsbee, Becker, Wagner, and Marks knew that Dr. Renka had conducted the autopsy, concluded that the manner of Torres's death was uncertain. With no probable cause to initiate charges, defendant Becker enlisted defendant Wagner to manufacture a false opinion. Defender Wagner was a pathologist in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Defendant Wagner fabricated an opinion that Mr. Torres's injuries could not have been caused by a fall down the stairs. Defendant Wagner fabricated an opinion that the manner of Mr. Torres's death was homicide. Defendant Wagner fabricated his opinion at the behest of defendant Becker so that she could initiate charges against Mr. Dunn. Defendant Becker also enlisted defendant Dean Marks from the Indiana State Police. According to defendant Marks' report, blood from the scene was consistent with a bloody instrument having been swung or flung at Mr. Torres after he fell. Defendants knew that his opinion was false. Defendant Marks' report was fabricated at the behest of defendant Becker so that she manufactured charges against Mr. Dunn. The only evidence supporting probable cause against Mr. Dunn were fabricated opinions from defendants Marks and Wagner and fabricated statement by defendant Sigsbee from Letha Sims. Defendant Becker's involvement in fabricating these expert opinions happened before probable cause was manufactured. RICO Act. Based on the fabricated evidence recounted above, Mr. Dunn was charged with murder on April 20th, 2010. Mr. Dunn was charged with murder more than 19 months after Mr. Torres's. The only evidence supporting the charges was fabricated reports from Defendant Wagner and Defendant Marks, and fabricated statement from Defendant Sigsby for Letha Sims. Defendants knew that there was no probable cause that Mr. Dunn had murdered Mr. Torres. The state's theory of the case was that Mr. Dunn beat Mr. Torres to death at the bottom of the stairs with some unknown object that was never found. The theory was consistent with eyewitness testimony from Letha and Willie Sims. Willie testified that Mr. Torres had lost his balance and fallen to the bottom of the stairs. Letha testified that when she exited her apartment, she saw Dwayne trying to help Mr. Torres at the bottom of the staircase. Letha and Willie both testified that Mr. Dunn never struck Mr. Torres. The state's case relies solely on defendants Wagner and Marks and impeaching Letha with her fabricated statement from defendant Sigsby. To discredit the eyewitnesses, defendant Becker argued that Letha and Willie Sims Black were a couple of liars invoking racist language designed to inflame prejudice against them. Go ahead. But all this tells us is that witnesses are not telling us the truth. People lie. It happens. And we can use terms like you don't find swans in a sewer. This area where we're living, the lifestyle they're living, we can't pick our witnesses. We're stuck with what we've got. And if that means I've got to put Jamar and Letha on the stand to give you their perspectives, then that's what I'm going to do, because you deserve to know. You deserve to have that information when you, the ultimate evaluators of this evidence, make your decisions. Defendant Becker's argument confirms that defendant's conspiracy to frame plaintiffs in part racially motivated. Defendant Becker would not have made the same comments about similarly situated white individuals. Defendants targeted Mr. Dunn because he is a black male. Consistent with Elkhart Police Department policies and practices, defendant Sigsby targeted Mr. Dunn and Letha Sims because of their race. Mr. Dunn was wrongfully convicted of murder based on false fabricated evidence. He was sentenced to 58 years of imprisonment. Plaintiff's exoneration. Mr. Dunn filed a post-conviction petition in 2016. During post-conviction proceedings, a forensic pathologist, Dr. Thomas Sozio, concluded that Mr. Torres' injuries were consistent with a fall from height, not from a beating. In August 2022, the Seventh Court of Appeals granted Mr. Dunn's habeas petition. The state dropped charges against Mr. Dunn on November 7th, 2022, ending the prosecution against Mr. Dunn. Mr. Dunn stands before this court as our sixth exoneree.
This was what, within a year and a half that this was the sixth one? 2 years?
Well, I mean, yeah, but these appeals and these post-conviction reliefs have been going on for years, like Andy Royer was in there, 17 years or something? So.
But this was like the sixth one, and 21 and 22 to come out. At this point of the system.
Yeah. But I mean, this case right here was filed in it was filed 7/25 of 2024. So we're still going through that. It's still going through the courts for this lawsuit. It's probably being mitigated, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is a fresh one.
So what is the population of Elkhart? Just so we can get a kind of a
probably
outsider.
I'd say, what is it, 52,000? What they say, but I mean, a lot of people come into Elkhart every day to work. I mean, you're talking about the trailer factory, the RV manufacturer of the world, trailers, instruments, you name it.
Railroads.
Right. Right here in Elkhart, Indiana, is one of the biggest railroads. The Norfolk Southern used to be Conrail yards. It's one of the biggest train yards that splits east and west traffic in the northern corridor. Huge.
Dangerous liberty. I've been saying that for a long time. Cops don't
Mhm.
become psychopaths. Psychopaths become cops. That's
Yep.
right.
It's absolutely true.
You guys want us to keep going through this?
Yeah,
Or
I
do you
want to keep
want to?
going. I got to keep going with it because this is more revealing than just that. Well, I thought we can keep going because it's going to be we're on 10. Or do you
Yeah,
want
I
me to stop again?
just whenever you feel like stopping.
Oh, I thought you said do you keep going with it. I thought you asked the chat if we wanted us to keep going with it. What's
Yeah,
up,
I was
TBZ?
asking the chat. Yeah.
Howard County, Chuck Bronson. Pink Taco is Wolverine. Oh, that's weird. Tata. Dino. All right, that's everybody that came in so far, probably. All right, you guys ready? Pink Taco's Wolverine.
That's weird.
Well, or a Wolverine. That's a double entendre truck.
Oh
All
my
right.
gosh.
Defendant City of Elkhart has a pattern of practice of systemic police misconduct. You'll want to pay attention to this. Defendant City of Elkhart has a long-standing pattern and practice of police misconduct. Dating back to 1993, the Board of Public Safety issued a report regarding the investigation of police officers found liable by a U.S. District Court of using excessive force. The Board of Public Safety's 1993 report found that some of the officers used brutality, and more importantly, the department failed to implement proper discipline of officers who commit misconduct. The board only expressed frustrations regarding efforts to hamper the city administration's investigation attempts, but it likewise set forth the report's goal to eradicate brutality as practiced by some of our police officers. The board linked this misconduct to the Elkhart Police Department failing to properly implement progressive discipline of officers. The board reasoned that actually if progressive corrective discipline had been practiced in the cases of Hill and Ambrose, either they would be cops today who know how to follow proper procedure, or they would not be working here. We tend to believe that failure to point weakness early in the officers' careers does no one a favor. All right, just to give you some perspective on that, Mr. Hill and Ambrose, one was Steve Ambrose. He shot uh, Derek Connor in the back on the corner of Prairie and Middlebury Street, and the other officer, Curtis Hill is who I think Hill is. I think that was Curtis Hill. The Board of Public Safety reiterated that the problem appears to be in a system that is secured in privacy and protected by a code of silence, further protected by state law. As you notice, Hill became the Attorney General of Indiana. He was the prosecutor in Elkhart, and I believe he was a cop. The board recommended that the department must find a way to better conduct internal investigations. By 2023, these reforms were still not implemented, thus allowing defendants to continue committing misconduct without fear of any meaningful discipline or consequences. Defendants' failure to implement and follow proper policies and procedures enabled defendants to violate plaintiffs' constitutional rights. To this day, systemic misconduct and a code of silence exists at the Elkhart Police Department. This custom, pattern, and practice of police misconduct contributed to the wrongful convictions of Keith Cooper, Christopher Parrish, Max Sims, Lena Kanan, Dwayne Dunn, and Andrew Royer. It likewise contributed to scores of other wrongfully convicted individuals who remain incarcerated to this day. The systemic police misconduct of the Elkhart Police Department enabled a group of officers to create a gang referred to as the Wolverines, who were known to prey on people of color. They also preyed on mentally handicapped people and people of lower income. As plaintiff revealed, the Elkhart Police Department remains one of the most corrupt law enforcement agencies in America. It has been this way for decades on end. For instance, by the early 1990s, the culture of misconduct within the Elkhart Police Department was so rampant that a number of white officers formed a group called the Wolverines. Now it's just like stop there for a minute, 107. Um, Rogue Nation shared my stuff out and he mentioned that in Red Dawn. You know, the Wolverines were standing up for tyranny. So the irony of it is that they create this name, the Wolverines, and it's nothing but tyranny. You got to think,
Yeah.
mirror opposites. That's what you're dealing with. These people are evil. All right, 107.
Twisted, sick motherfuckers. That's what they are.
This group was well known to others within the Elkhart Police Department, including the Chief of Police, J.J. Ivory. According to Mr. Ivory, the Wolverines were a group of officers, mostly FOP, Fraternal Order of Police members, or possibly all of them were members of the FOP during that time frame. And they were of the consensus of a belief of one for all and all for one, as far as their dealings with citizens of Elkhart, especially the people in the south central side of Elkhart. As a former chief, Ivory understood this meant that Wolverines would all stick together regardless on whatever the issue might be, and that whatever it took, more or less, made me feel they would lie, cheat, fraud, or whatever it took to uphold their cause, quote unquote. The Wolverines likewise followed their own code of silence. Members of the Wolverines included officers who were alleged to be racist and belonging to possibly subversive groups like the Ku Klux Klan. Mr. Ivory discovered the Ku Klux Klan involvement as he heard people just idly chit-chatting, making comments saying that we had officers who were card-carrying members of the KKK, the Elkhart Police Department, confirming their prejudices. Mr. Ivory heard members of the Wolverines use racial slurs. Quote, I heard some of the members use the N-word when they didn't know I was around. I walked around the corner. I could walk in on conversations periodically and excuse me. And I heard, I believe it was Mr. Ambrose use the N-word one time as far as dealing with a citizen in South Central Elkhart. And of course, as soon as they saw me when I walked around the corner, the conversation ceased, unquote. The Wolverines espoused racist beliefs and targeted people of color. The Wolverines had a reputation within the department for being very proactive officers as far as their work within the South Central area. Given their penchant for misconduct, Mr. Ivory came to question the legitimacy of any investigation conducted by members of the Wolverines. Defendant City never conducted any investigation into the Wolverines. The former Internal Affairs IA Lieutenant Paul Converse reveals that he believed a cop gang existed within the Elkhart Police Department. As Mr. Converse revealed, even though he was on the notice of a cop gang and the Wolverines, he never conducted a formal, normal, nor informal investigation into the matter. Failure to act, or prevent.
And speaking of that, when they're talking, when they stay right here, let me see if I can highlight it. Let's see. Where was it? They were talking about they were very. Oh, it's right here. They were very proactive about the south side of the city.
Mhm.
We're going to get into that in another panel. It might be a couple panels where we have proof, their own writing in proof that they literally had keys to the inner city.
Yep.
And that's not just hearsay. That is a fact. They had keys to apartment buildings in the area.
All right. You ready?
Yes, sir.
Even though the chiefs of police were on notice of the existence of the Wolverines, a cop gang, none requested that a formal nor informal investigation be conducted, so nothing was done. That failure directly led to plaintiffs' constitutional rights being violated. Defendant City's current assistant chief of police, Todd Thayer, was a member of the Wolverines. defendant city's continued employment of Mr. Thayer and promotion of Mr. Thayer to Assistant Chief of Police is evidence of the widespread culture of misconduct that infects the Elkhart Police Department. Defendant's retaliation against plaintiff is part and parcel to this widespread systemic pattern of police misconduct that infects the Elkhart Police Department. A federal jury has already determined that defendant City of Elkhart violated Christopher Parrish's constitutional rights. A federal jury had already determined that defendant City's failures led to the violation of a citizen's constitutional rights. On September 24, 2007, Christopher Parrish filed a federal civil rights action arising from his wrongful conviction against Elkhart police officer defendants Rizzuto, Ambrose, Cutler, and the City of Elkhart. C. Parrish versus City of Elkhart et al. Case, and it gives a case number. In that suit, Mr. Parrish alleged that various defendants, including defendant City of Elkhart, violated his constitutional right to a fair trial and due process of law by fabricating evidence, coercing witnesses, conducting photo arrays that were improper and unduly suggestive, and by withholding exculpatory evidence. Mr. Parrish alleged that the defendant officers engaged in such misconduct pursuant to the policies, practices, and customs wrongfully maintained by the defendant City of Elkhart. Mr. Parrish was ultimately afforded a trial on his claims against defendant City of Elkhart and Steve Rizzuto. Mr. Parrish presented 3 Monell theories before a jury and his federal civil trial. 1, that the policymaker, Chief Bechtel, turned a blind eye to misconduct, did nothing about it, thus allowing defendant Rizzuto to violate Mr. Parrish's constitutional rights. 2, the City of Elkhart failed to train its employees, thus allowing an untrained defendant Rizzuto to violate Mr. Parrish's constitutional rights. And 3, the City of Elkhart had a custom and practice of withholding exculpatory information, thus causing the violation of Mr. Parrish's constitutional rights. On October 27, 2010, a jury found in favor of Mr. Parrish and against defendant Rizzuto. On Mr. Parrish's policy and practice claim against defendant of Elkhart, the jury once again found in favor of Mr. Parrish. The Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed the jury's liability determinations against defendants Rizzuto and the City of Elkhart on December 20th, 2012. See Parrish versus City of Elkhart. 702 F3D 997, 7th Circuit, 2012. The City of Elkhart failed to provide sufficient training and supervision and has exhibited deliberate indifference. The constitutional injuries plaintiffs suffered were caused by the policies and practices of the Elkhart Police Department. Indeed, within the Elkhart Police Department, there was a policy and practice of taking shortcuts to close criminal investigations, including fabricating statements, coercing witnesses and or suspects during interrogations, and withholding exculpatory and impeachment evidence. Policymakers and supervisory personnel were aware of and failed to curb the improper investigative practices that led to numerous Brady violations. The problems that defendants engaged in were common knowledge at the Elkhart Police Department. This includes the department's most senior leadership. This policy and practice repeated itself in numerous criminal investigations at the Elkhart Police Department. Nonetheless, and despite notice to and often involvement of policymakers in the above described unconstitutional policies and practices, there was no effort to rectify any such conduct or misconduct. Defendants were permitted to act with impunity in criminal investigations. The City of Elkhart and officials within the department failed to act to remedy the abuses described in the preceding paragraphs despite actual knowledge of the pattern of misconduct. They hereby perpetuated the unlawful practices and ensured that no action be taken independent of the judicial process to remedy plaintiffs' ongoing injuries. The policies and practices described in the foregoing paragraphs were consciously approved by a City of Elkhart policymakers who were deliberately indifferent to the violations of constitutional rights described herein. Those policies and practices were the proximate cause of the constitutional injuries the plaintiffs sustained, as described more fully above. Moreover, the city's failure to train its officers effectively condones, ratifies, and sanctions the kind of misconduct that the defendant officers committed against plaintiff in this case. Constitutional violations such as occurred in this case are encouraged and facilitated as a result of the city's practices and de facto policies as alleged above. All right. So as you're seeing, they've been sued numerous times. Everybody stated these things in their claims, and the courts have continuously ruled against the city of Elkhart that failure to properly train, discipline, or terminate these officers is part of the claim. It's been ruled on. Nothing's changed to this day. You know, the only thing you get out of it, they delete the Facebook comments so you can't comment about it.
Absolutely.
They silence you.
They don't want you to redress your grievances at all. What they want to do is they want to bury all this shit as quickly as possible. That's what they want to do. If you're not talking about it, they seem to think that it's just going to go away, but it ain't.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go away. We're not going to let it.
If you guys are paying attention to this, this attorney is kicking ass and taking names, okay? And he ain't fucking around. He's dragging them right through the
Elliot
coals.
Slozar.
He's dragging them through the coals and back through it again by their face. And
Elliot Slozar is with Lovey and Lovey out of Chicago, Illinois. There's a link for their page.
Yeah.
This is just unreal, guys.
I'm gonna keep reading.
Let me get back over to it.
All right. Mr. Dunn's damages. Mr. Dunn was charged with murder on April 20th, 2010. Mind you guys, this is 2010 now. We're talking, 14 years ago, of course, but it's a pattern and practice. It continues. The more convictions we get, they're happening right now. Mr. Dunn was charged with murder on April 20th, 2010. His life has never been the same since. Based on fabricated evidence, a jury convicted Mr. Dunn of murder on February 22nd, 2011. On March 17, 2011, Mr. Dunn was sentenced to 58 years imprisonment. In February 2013, Mr. Dunn filed pro se petition for post-conviction relief. In January 2017, Mr. Dunn had an evidentiary hearing about his petition for post-conviction relief. Defendant Becker represented the state during post-conviction proceedings. The court denied Mr. Dunn's post-conviction petition on April 4, 2017. In March 2018, Mr. Dunn filed a federal habeas petition. On December 23, 2020, the federal district court granted Mr. Dunn's petition. On August 12, 2022, the Seventh Circuit affirmed the district court's decision granting habeas relief. The case against Mr. Dunn was dismissed in November of 2022. Mr. Dunn spent more than 12 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. Mr. Dunn suffered injuries every day of his wrongful incarceration. Now, the damages. Mr. Dunn's arrest and wrongful conviction caused Mr. Dunn to lose his job and his future job prospect, skills, and income he would have acquired during his wrongful detention and after his release. During his wrongful incarceration, Mr. Dunn was stripped of the various pleasures of basic human experience, from the simplest to the most important, all free people enjoy as a matter of right. He missed out on the ability to raise his child, share holidays, births, funerals, and other life events with loved ones, and the fundamental freedom to live one's life as an autonomous human being. Mr. Dunn also suffered physical injuries during his incarceration. Those injuries included the lack of adequate medical care. Those struggles caused Mr. Dunn to suffer on a daily basis. As a result of his wrongful incarceration, Mr. Dunn must now attempt to rebuild his life at the age of 60 years old. Mr. Dunn has suffered tremendous damage, including physical sickness and injury and emotional damages, all proximately caused by defendant's misconduct. Count 1, 42 U.S.C. 1983, due process, all defendants. Violation of due process. Each of the paragraphs of this complaint is incorporated as if restated fully herein. As described more fully above, defendants, while acting individually, jointly, and in conspiracy as well as under color of law and within the scope of their employment, deprive Mr. Dunn of his constitutional right to a fair trial. In the manner described more fully above, the defendants conducted a reckless investigation, withheld exculpatory evidence, withheld impeachment evidence, destroyed evidence, and fabricated false reports, false testimony, and other evidence. Absent this misconduct, the prosecution of Mr. Dunn could not and would not have been pursued. Defendants' misconduct also directly resulted in the unjust criminal conviction of Mr. Dunn, thereby denying each of his constitutional rights to a fair trial in violation of the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. As a result of this violation and his constitutional right to a fair trial, Mr. Dunn suffered injuries, including but not limited to emotional distress and pain and suffering, as is more fully alleged above. The misconduct described in this count was objectively unreasonable and was undertaken intentionally and with willful indifference to Mr. Dunn's constitutional rights. The misconduct described in this count was undertaken pursuant to a routine practice of the Elkhart Police Department to pursue wrongful convictions through reckless and profoundly flawed investigations, provision of false evidence and reports, coerced evidence, and failure to properly supervise employees, knowing that those employees were providing false evidence. In this way, the municipal defendants violated Mr. Dunn's rights by maintaining policies and practices that were the moving force driving the foregoing constitutional violations. These widespread practices, so well settled as to constitute de facto policy in the Elkhart Police Department, were able to exist and thrive because municipal policymakers with authority over the Division of Police exhibited deliberate indifference to these problems, thereby effectively ratifying them. The widespread practices described in the preceding paragraphs were allowed to flourish because the municipal defendants declined to implement sufficient training and enforce legitimate oversight and punishment. Count 2, an uppercut. 1983 deprivation of rights of liberty without probable cause. 4th and 14th Amendment, all defendants. Each of the paragraphs of this complaint is incorporated as if restated fully herein. As described more fully above, the defendants individually, jointly, and in conspiracy with each other, as well as under color of law and within the scope of their employment, deprived Mr. Dunn of his constitutional right to be free from unlawful prosecution and continued detention without probable cause. In the manner described more fully above, the defendants made, influenced, and or participated in the decision to prosecute Mr. Dunn for these crimes for which prosecution there was no probable cause, and which caused Mr. Dunn to suffer a deprivation of liberty. Their misconduct included falsifying evidence and withholding exculpatory evidence. The defendants' misconduct directly resulted in the unlawful prosecution and incarceration of Mr. Dunn, thereby denying each of his constitutional right to liberty in violation of his constitutional rights. As described more fully above, the prosecution was ultimately resolved in Mr. Dunn's favor. Because of this violation of his constitutional rights, Mr. Dunn suffered injuries, including but not limited to bodily harm and emotional distress, as is more fully alleged above. The defendants' misconduct, as described in this count, was objectively, unreasonably, and was undertaken intentionally with malice and willful indifference to Mr. Dunn's constitutional rights. The misconduct described in this count was undertaken pursuant to a routine practice of the Elkhart Police Department to pursue wrongful prosecutions and wrongful convictions through reckless and profoundly flawed investigations and coerced evidence. In this way, the municipal defendants violated Mr. Dunn's rights by maintaining policies and practices that were the moving force driving in the foregoing constitutional violations. These widespread practices, so well settled so as to constitute de facto policy in the Elkhart Police Department, could exist and thrive because municipal policymakers with authority over the Division of Police exhibited deliberate indifference in the problem, thereby effectively ratifying it. The widespread practices described in the preceding paragraph could flourish because the municipal defendants declined to implement sufficient training and or enforce legitimate oversight and punishment. Count 3, failure to intervene, all defendants. Each of the paragraphs of this complaint is incorporated as if restated fully herein. In the manner described above during the constitutional violations described above, one or more of the defendants stood by without intervening to prevent the misconduct despite having a reasonable opportunity to do so. Because of the defendant's failure to intervene to prevent the violation of Mr. Dunn's constitutional rights, Mr. Dunn suffered pain and injury as well as emotional distress. The misconduct described in this count was objectively unreasonable and was undertaken intentionally and with willful indifference to Mr. Dunn's rights. The misconduct described in this count was undertaken pursuant to the policy and practice of the Elkhart Police Department in a manner described more fully in the preceding paragraphs and was tacitly ratified by policymakers for the municipal defendants with final policymaking authority. Count 4, 1983, conspiracy to deprive constitutional rights, all defendants. Each of the paragraphs of this complaint is incorporated as if ratified fully herein. After Mr. Torres' death, the defendants reached an agreement amongst themselves to frame Mr. Dunn for the crime and to hereby deprive them or him of his constitutional rights and liberty to be continuously taken away from him, all as described as various paragraphs of this complaint. In manner, the defendants acting in concert and with unknown co-conspirators conspired by concerted action and to accomplish an unlawful purpose by the unlawful means. And furthermore, of the conspiracy, each of the co-conspirators committed overt acts as described in this complaint and was an otherwise willful participant in joint activity. As a direct and proximate result of the illicit prior agreement reference above, Mr. Dunn's rights were violated, and he suffered financial damages as well as severe emotional distress and anguish, as more fully alleged above. The misconduct described in this count was undertaken with malice, willfulness, and recklessness, indifference to the right of others. The misconduct described in this count was undertaken pursuant to the policy and practice of the Elkhart Police Department in the manner described more fully in the preceding paragraphs and was tacitly ratified by policymakers for the municipal government or defendants with final policymaking authority. Count 5, equal protection, all defendants. I need to take a drink.
We'll take a break right there. That's fine. Let's let that sink in for the people. Do you guys see the what's going on here? What they're doing? Do you see the pattern of these officers?
Oh yeah.
Hey,
I
Jaime.
see it every time I go film because they ain't learned a thing. And then, the failure to act or prevent, it's right there. It was just stated. So you'll stand by while one of your cohorts that you took an oath to defend this, uphold the Constitution, not defend it. Some of them did take an oath to defend it too, but they took an oath to uphold it. Yet they'll stand right beside somebody and fail to act when they violate your rights. That's bullshit. And that's exactly what's stated in this lawsuit right here.
Well, we can tell you explicitly that just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. It's like Elkhart and everything that's going on there is like a fucking onion. And every time you peel away a layer, you think you're to the core of it. And nope, there's more layers and more layers and more layers. It runs deep there. Real deep.
It'll keep coming out too. I mean, it's just it's coming out now. It's just
Well, Eggsy, they think they're untouchable, but they're finding out right now, right now, just how untouchable they ain't, because everything's starting to come out now. Everything's starting to unravel for them. And nobody is talking about it. Mainstream media legacy media is not talking about it.
Well, I mean, they'll talk about a little bit of it, but they won't go into nothing like this for you.
They won't go into detail and explain everything that brought that on. They'll mention it in passing. They'll give a 2-minute segment on it and then they're done.
You want to know why? Because the police union will spend enough money to put sponsors on that television channel to not do it.
Yep.
That's the difference. Sponsorship.
Disgusting.
You want me to keep going?
You can or I can. It don't matter to me, man.
I'll go. I'll read the whole thing. I don't care.
Okay. He's on
All right,
fire,
count
folks.
5.
Let's go.
Count 5, 42 USC 1983, equal protection, all defendants. Each of the paragraphs of this complaint is incorporated as if restated fully herein. As described more fully above, the defendants denied plaintiff equal protection of the law. Specifically, these defendants actively participated in or personally caused misconduct in terms of conducting investigations in a manner calculated to deprive minority suspects of their due process rights by withholding material exculpatory evidence, fabricating false evidence of those suspects' guilt. Said misconduct was motivated by racial animus and constituted purposeful discrimination. It also affected minorities in a grossly disproportionate manner vis-a-vis as is, whatever it is, similarly situated Caucasian individuals. As a result of the violation, plaintiff, a black male, suffered injuries, including but not limited to emotional distress. The conduct of the defendants described in the count was undertaken pursuant to the policy and practice of the Elkhart Police Department in the manner described more fully above. Count 6, Monell claim against defendant, City of Elkhart. Each of the paragraphs of this complaint is incorporated as if restated fully herein. The actions of the Elkhart police officers in withholding material exculpatory information and Mr. Dunn and his counsel were undertaken pursuant to the policies and practice of the Elkhart City Police described above, which were created, maintained, or ratified by policymakers for the City of Elkhart with final policy-making authority. The policies and practices described in this count were maintained and implemented by the City of Elkhart with deliberate indifference to Mr. Dunn's constitutional rights. As a direct and proximate result of the City of Elkhart's actions, Mr. Dunn's constitutional rights were violated and he suffered injuries and damages as set forth in this complaint. The City of Elkhart is therefore liable for misconduct committed by its officers. Count 7. State law claim, City of Elkhart's breach of duty in hiring, training, and supervising negligence. Each of the foregoing paragraphs is incorporated as if restated fully herein. The defendant, City of Elkhart, and its police department at all times relevant had a duty to exercise due care in hiring police officers, and had a duty to properly train, supervise, and discipline Elkhart Police Department officers in relation to their duties, including their actions and criminal investigations. I've said it a million times. The City of Elkhart and its police department breached those duties by failing to exercise due care in hiring and then failing to properly train, supervise, and discipline the officers involved in the misconduct and criminal investigations. As a direct and proximate result of the City of Elkhart's failing to exercise due care in hiring and failing to train and supervise, defendants were able to secure Mr. Dunn's wrongful conviction. Count 8. State law claim, City of Elkhart's breach of duty in hiring, willful and wanton conduct. Each of the foregoing paragraphs is incorporated as if restated fully herein. The City of Elkhart and its police department at all times relevant had a duty to refrain from willful and wanton conduct in hiring police officers. The City of Elkhart and its police department breached that duty by engaging in willful and wanton conduct in hiring defendant Sigsby. Each of the paragraphs in this complaint is incorporated as if restated fully herein. In committing the acts alleged in the preceding paragraphs, the police defendants were members and agents of the Elkhart Police Department acting at all relevant times within the employment. Defendant City Elkhart is liable as principals for all state law torts committed by their agents. In committing the acts alleged in the preceding paragraphs, defendant Sigsby was a member and agent of the Elkhart Police Department acting at all relevant times within the scope of his employment. Defendant City of Elkhart is liable as principals for all state law torts committed by their agents. Count 10. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. Intentional infliction of emotional distress, all defendants. Mr. Dunn hereby incorporate by reference the foregoing paragraphs and further allege as follows. Defendants intentionally and or recklessly, directly and proximately caused Mr. Dunn, an innocent man, to be falsely arrested, maliciously prosecuted, and wrongfully imprisoned in breach of the duties they owed to Mr. Dunn to refrain from A, destroying evidence, B, fabricating evidence, C, withholding material, exculpatory and impeachment evidence, D, failing to conduct a constitutionally adequate investigation, E, maliciously prosecuting, causing Mr. Dunn's false arrest and imprisonment. The defendant's actions caused Mr. Dunn to suffer psychological, including physical ailments and unauthorized physical contact resulting from the circumstances and duration of his wrongful incarceration, and to fear for his physical safety throughout the period of his pretrial and post-conviction incarceration. The defendant's actions caused Mr. Dunn to experience severe emotional distress, including but not limited to humiliation, embarrassment, degradation, loss of trust, permanent loss of natural psychological development, and ongoing depression. Wherefore, plaintiff D. Wayne Dunn respectfully requests this court enter judgment in his favor and against Michael Sigsby, Vicky Becker, Dr. Scott Wagner, and Dean Marks in their individual capacities in the defendant's city of Elkhart in the state of Indiana, awarding compensation, damages, attorney's fees, and costs against each defendant and punitive damages against each of the individual defendants, as well as any other relief this court deems appropriate. Jury demand. Plaintiff Dwayne Dunn hereby demands trial by jury pursuant to Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 38B on all issues so triable. Respectfully submitted. Margaret Campbell, one of the plaintiff's attorneys. John Loby, Elliott Slozar, Margaret Campbell, Loby and Loby, 311 Aberdeen, 3rd floor, Chicago, Illinois, 60607. Call them at 312-243-5900. If you need to, fax 312-243-5902.
Now, supplies are limited. So there you have it, guys. That's this is just one case. So
yeah,
let me ask you guys, what are you guys' thoughts? Let's get your guys' input. You've heard famously talking. Let's get your guys' input.
I'll say this, man, like, it's hard to go around and record because you're waiting on crime to happen. You kind of hope that no crime happens. You kind of hope that you don't have to see a police officer on a street corner every day and being the referee or messing with some guy that's trying to fix his battery cable or whatever's going wrong with his car. Like the other night, Leo Watcher recorded that. This is a prime example. Me and Leo Watcher were out. We were driving down Harrison Street by the old Linda's Hideaway and Bakery. Noticed a Spanish guy working on his car. He was in private parking lot, not bothering nobody, suspicious or anything. 5 seconds later, I'm out on 6th and Harrison with one. We turn around, we come back. We had to wait on the stoplights downtown. We get back there. We record the situation. One's trying to shine his flashlight funky under his armpit, being funny. And then when they leave, they go like right beside me. They don't yield for the right of way. They don't adhere to no laws. They don't yield to the right of way of a pedestrian. At that point, he's off his scene. He's got to give me the opportunity to cross the road. Even if I'm standing at the corner recording, he still has to see if I'm going to cross that road, not just drive past. I mean, you see, like, the technicalities of mess with the guy. I drove the guy's car home for him. It's a stick shift. I guess his license was wonky or something, but he wasn't driving. He was just working on the car in a private parking lot. He wasn't on the roadway, and then when they go to leave, they're asking him, "Oh, are you done with us? You don't need anything else from it?" Like, what? He didn't need you. You didn't come with jumper cables. You came with a suspicion that you could. It's all wrongful. It's warrantless. There's no reasonable articulated suspicion that I was, being committed, in the process of being committed, or had already been committed. So that's how they work. And it's blatant in their training, just like filming the other night. I come up filming. A lot of people missed it. The guy radioed over the radio, "Hey, the cameraman's out here." That's when my live clicked on. I asked him for his name and badge number, and it went from there. That was the good old clown show, and I didn't know that cop could dance that good, but I found out later.
He's a hell of a dancer.
Yeah, he's a good dancer. He should go.
Well done, my friend.
Maybe
well done, my friend.
Maybe he's dances at Dockside.
So a lot of you know that I did go up to Elkhart and South Bend, and I went out recording with Famously and Leo Watcher. And my very first two things I recorded up there were One was confronting one of the sergeants or lieutenant, I can't remember, about the Elkhart tapes.
Yeah.
Is that right?
The South Bend police tapes.
South Bend
Yeah.
tapes. And the other was they were saying that a guy was trying to jump over a bridge, and they were beating the ever living shit out of him.
Yeah,
We could
that was
hear him
Mr.
for
Walker.
3 blocks away,
Yeah.
beating the ever living shit out of him. And when we walked up, he had cuts all over his arms, his face, his legs. Like the whole area is corrupt as shit. The whole
He
area.
was-
They get kicked for one, they go right to the next, and then to the next. That's the problem.
If you
If you do
notice,
something wrong,
there
Go
was
ahead.
one officer there that didn't want nothing to do with it. He got the hell out of there. He's like, "Oh shit, these cameras are here. I'm getting the hell away from this shit. I don't want nothing to do with it." That's wrong. You know, you've had officers, like, "Oh, well, I don't know what I do to somebody. I don't know I made you that mad," or whatever else. But the problem is you'll stand by idly knowing that something's going on. You'll stand by and know that there's corruption around you, but you fail to act or do anything about it. So you're culpable in it. Plain and simple. It's either good cop or bad cop, and really it's all bad cops there. You have to be a bad cop to be in a bad place like that. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's
Elkhart's
why
terrible.
we were talking about it one time, and I like what Havoc said, that the only good cop technically would be a cop that works for a police department that has a union and refuses to pay the union dues because of the corruption in that department.
I mean, they would oust you. You'd be on desk duty.
Well, that's
You know
what.
what I
See what I'm
mean?
saying? though? Yeah.
Be up there with Miss Gates answering the phone and shit, or the guy in dispatch that answers the phone, because they don't answer the phones at South Bend Police Department when you call 574-295-7070. They don't answer that phone number. It goes to dispatch. So if you got any concerns, you got to call 574-295-7070. And that's where you press 0 to talk to the operator. It goes to dispatch. But during the day, you play hell. The guy at dispatch tell you, "Oh, they're out doing transport." Well, damn, they're awful short staffed. I imagine. Did you just read this lawsuit? You guys read along with that lawsuit. I imagine after this, nobody wants to work there.
And no one wants to talk to anybody either.
I mean, it's.
What was that number again for the people?
It's 574-295-7070.
And we'll just go ahead and post that in the chat. If you would like to redress your government in a peaceful, respectful manner, feel free.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest here, you call up and you start yelling and screaming at them, they're going to hang up on you. We're not going to get anything done. Don't do that.
Miss Gates is going to answer the phone. She can't do nothing. She's a civilian. There's.
And
they got a big bubble they're in now. It's like a safety glass they're in.
Like anything under the sun says here. Look what they do to the people that do speak out. Joy Phillips, case in point. Excellent. Yeah. And I would say I don't know a lot about her history, about her background, about anything that she's done. But from what I've seen, that's a good cop right there because she's speaking out. She's like, no, you're not going to do this to this guy. I'm not going to write a false warrant. That's the way I take that.
Right. There's an old video about that lobby at the police department when that girl was dancing on the lobby. They were happy somebody came in there when she was dancing up there on that countertop. They arrested her. Like, they didn't arrest her. They detained her from, I don't know where it was, but she was in some like shorty shorts and whatever else. They took her in the other room over there. They were happy that she was there. But you walk in there, or you walk in there with your camera. Walk in there without a camera and see how they treat you and how they talk to you. That's what you do.
Let's do this real quick.
You got to have a hidden camera in here. Don't tell
over
nobody.
Here. We'll share this and share.
You found it?
I did.
Nice.
So this is what we're talking about. What Famously's talking about. Let's watch this real quick.
They were welcoming her.
Elkhart Police Station. Behavior termed inappropriate between police department employees and a female visitor results in 1 firing, 1 resignation, and 4 suspensions. Today, peek at what all the fuss was about. Mark Peterson joins us with the surveillance camera pictures from the lobby. Mark?
Well, we've heard the incident involved inappropriate touching and suggestive photographs. Again, at a very public city-owned place, the lobby of the Elkhart Police Department. Now I've got a chance to see exactly what went on. It all started early Thanksgiving morning when a woman with dark hair, a white shirt, a denim miniskirt, and white boots entered the lobby of the Elkhart Police Department. The entire visit was recorded by 2 separate surveillance cameras, although there was no audio recorded. It's important to note that this woman was not under arrest.
She was just waiting on transportation. I believe she resides in Chicago, so she was waiting on somebody to come pick her up.
At one point, one of the men working the front desk appears to give the woman a drink. The friendly gestures weren't all so innocent. At about 4:04 a.m., the woman steps into a room to the side of the front desk. On the right of your screen, through the open door, you can see inappropriate touching and some apparent picture taking. At one point, it appears the woman's skirt is pulled up to her waist. Around 4:15 a.m., the woman climbs up onto the counter of the front desk. At least 2 of the 3 males behind the desk appear to be taking pictures with camera phones. One even walks into the lobby to snap a picture from behind.
As everybody played their little part, and it was just basically wrong all the way around.
Was she in any way a victim or
She participated, so.
The prosecutor has finished reviewing the video while he concluded the conduct was unbecoming, inappropriate, and otherwise an embarrassment to the department. He did not find any of the conduct to be criminal. Charges will not be filed, meaning this case is now closed.
Happy to close this chapter and move on and get on with regular business. The police department did a good job in policing itself. We apologize that it happened, but it did happen and it was dealt with, and we're moving on.
Again, 2 of the parties involved don't work at the police department anymore. 1 was fired, 1 resigned, 4 others were suspended.
Okay, Mark, why was she at the police department?
Like that, if you could see on the timestamp on the video, that happened in 2007.
Was that green straight?
Oh my God. Was that Rachel?
Rachel.
Rachel, where's my crown royal?
I don't know. Just imagine that, like, well, she's probably over 18, but at the same time, did he share that with his mom and kids and everything when he went home?
No, they showed it with the FOP Brotherhood.
That's what
little
it
group
was,
chats when they're out in the bars and everything.
Hey, look for is it Bruce Davidson? Look for a video on Bruce Davidson, Elkhart, Indiana. Former FOP president. Everything that you look up, Elkhart, man. If you look up all like Max Walker versus the state of Indiana versus Max Walker, the ex-prosecutor, every one of them's been corrupt, man. I ain't found one that ain't been corrupt. Tell you the truth.
Is that the one that was one of the nation's most prolific bank robbers?
Yeah, like Midwest or something. Yeah, he was the FOP president. Now that's one thing. Like Mayor Perrin was a controversial mayor, but it was like he spoke out against some of this. Maybe he understood some of it too, but the only way to cope or to function in Elkhart is to be part of the corruption, or else you don't get nothing done. It's weird.
Well, I can't.
Is there a video about it?
Hold on, let me. Yeah, let me add to stage real quick, and then there's no video, but
right.
I gotta do this a different way, I guess. It says here, and I'm going to see if I can make it bigger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I can do it, but I'll just read a little bit of it here. A judge has sentenced a former Elkhart, Indiana police officer to 25 years in prison for a string of bank robberies in 11 states, including Indiana. Clifton Bruce Davidson, 42, of Holland, Michigan, was sentenced Tuesday in U.S. District Court in Rock Island, Illinois. He pleaded guilty in July to committing 24 bank robberies between November of 2003 and November of 2005, netting more than $167,000. He used a gun during a robbery in Moline, Illinois, court records show. In court, Davidson admitted to 4 robberies in Michigan, 3 each in Illinois, Kentucky, and Missouri, 2 each in Ohio, Tennessee, Maryland, and Wisconsin, and 1 each in Indiana, Iowa, and Connecticut between November 12, 2003 and last November 18, 2005. Davidson, who also had been a lawyer before being disbarred, was also ordered to pay the banks $166,000 in restitution. He was on the most wanted list, and he was taken into custody in Phoenix, Arizona. He was fired from the Elkhart Police Force in 1995 for making public statements about an investigation into a police shooting. He later won a defamation suit against the city and then Mayor James Perron over a 1994 letter to the editor in a local newspaper that alleged Davidson abused unnamed police privileges and was soft on crime. Wonder why he was soft on crime. About Cloud Kicker, good to see you, man.
Go along. The code of silence there, you know. He was also the FOP president, so, and the chief of police. I mean, you go from that to a prolific bank robber. Damn. Who helped him? Who was his getaway driver?
I mean, that just goes to prove that they're revenue generators, whether it be for themselves or for the FOP and the cities.
Well, yeah, I found business records for that Michael Sigsby in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. The one that helped frame Dunn. You know, these people are moving to Florida like that. It's like weird. They all go to Florida. They take all their earnings and go to Florida somehow. You ever price property down there? It's not cheap, especially in Fort Lauderdale. I mean,
Michael Holstaple from Kokomo.
Don't know him. Yeah, you guys, thank you for watching and tuning in. For sure. I don't mind reading that stuff. It's just, I was going to do it, you know, soon, but I had been sick. Hell, if I was reading you that, my voice is still a little hoarse. No pun intended.
And so I'm not really finding much on that right now, and I'm not trying to distract from what we're looking up here now and talking about. What I want you guys to understand is that there's going to be a lot more of these cases coming out. We're going to try and cover as many of them as we can. And in a future panel, we're going to show you guys how to look up people. We're about the 2-hour mark now, so we're going to go ahead and wrap it up, I think. But
yeah, that's right.
In an upcoming stream, we will show you guys how to look up police officers and government officials in your area, and you can find out their salaries and, you know, a lot of good information about them. And that can be useful if you're trying to see. It can bring up a lot of things, and we'll show you that in an upcoming stream. But I just want to thank everybody for coming in. I appreciate the support. I know Famously appreciates it. You got anything else you want to say?
Well, just thank you guys for coming in. Like I said, I don't mind reading things like that. I mean, it's revealing. Nobody else is going to do it for you. You know, a lot of people don't even know where to go to find these PDF files and things like that. Like, it takes a lot of research and, you know, willpower, really. A lot of people don't care. I mean, they could care less. They're going to drive down the road. They're not worried about it. They'll just tell the cop, I'll fix that tail light tomorrow. Don't worry about it, officer. Oh, no. While they're shining a flashlight in your eye, they're throwing dope in there, setting these people up.
What question, Howard?
Just like the old Wolverines. We'll get more content out
Howard.
there. We're going to try. What's up? What's the question, Howard?
Howard, what question, buddy?
Where's the Jeopardy sound here? He must have went to bed.
No, he was just the case famously went over. Is that case? Well, yes, it is. That was just filed November this year, November 7th.
Yeah, August. Yes, actually, July. It was filed in July.
Yeah, it was this year. It's still
Published in
ongoing,
August.
Howard.
I'll be honest with you. I try not to like put them cases out there unless they are public, because I mean, once they go public, they go public. But having certain knowledge and things like that, are people, you know, I'm not going to reveal anything of who tells me anything about this or that. But I'll tell you this right now. I will always respect the fact that we will wait until the attorneys file the proceedings, for the simple fact that you don't want to hamper or be interfering with any kind of court proceedings at all, period.
No.
Whether it's
they'll drag you
or
in.
prosecution. So if it's already published and you can find it publicly, there's a bunch out there. They all haven't had videos made of them, but that's what we'll do. We'll try to get more and more as they come out. Hopefully we start being able to bring you videos of, you know, the biggest question that people have to ask before I end this is, all these wrongful convictions and all these people that, you know, were buried and their families thought that they had closure. There's a lot of wounds that are ripped open again. And there's a lot of unsolved murders or homicides, and you have to ask yourself, was it the police doing this? Why would they cover it up? Why would they get a false confession out of somebody if they didn't do it? It just doesn't. I mean, if they thought that they had the wrong person, it's nothing to come forward and say, "Oh man, you know, I got it wrong, man." That hasn't happened. So there's a reason for it. And who were they?
And
I mean, let's be honest.
I'm going to add one more thing, and then we'll go ahead and end this. If you guys like this content, make sure and subscribe to my homie over here, Famously Unfamous. Check him out. He's doing a lot of good work over there in Elkhart in the area. Very smart dude. He'll give you the content that you deserve. We're going to try and do more of these. I don't know how often we can do them because I work. You all know that. But, yeah, we're going to try and cover as much of these as we can, guys. So thank you very much for joining. Y'all have a blessed night. Stay safe. Stay free. And we will see you next time. Thank you, guys.
All right, you guys. Thank you.